Do you want to know how you can lose weight and keep it off for good? How you can lose that stubborn body fat that you've been dying to get off and reveal a sexy, toned, feminine body underneath. Well, in today's video, I'm going to explain how you can scientifically guarantee that you melt body fat and keep it off for good while eating a high-calorie, realistic, sustainable diet. This is the exact method that I myself have used to help hundreds of women of all different ages and backgrounds lose anywhere from 15 to 40 pounds of body fat and keep it off their bodies for good. So listen up, let's talk about how you can do this too. What's going on, Fit Fam? Welcome on back to my channel. My name is Megan Janice. I'm an online nutrition and fitness coach for women, and I teach ladies just like you how to eat more food without any restrictions and work out smarter instead of harder so you can build that banging, sexy, toned, feminine hourglass body you're dying to have, and how to maintain it year-round for life with ease. So if you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. Come follow me over on Instagram for even more fitness content. And if you're coming on back, thank you so much for joining for another video. Okay, fam, so how do we lose weight, and not just lose it, but actually keep it off for good? Because we're not just trying to do something really extreme where we drop a bunch and we end up yo-yoing it back. So how do we get away from that? How can we lose body fat forever? Well, the way that you scientifically guarantee that you lose weight and keep it off for good is, number one, preparing your body for the most effective calorie deficit possible. And then number two, knowing how to exit a calorie deficit after you have lost anywhere from 15 to 40 pounds, potentially even more, and then be able to maintain that weight loss at a higher calorie intake. So no longer at your deficit calories, back up to an easy maintenance amount of calories. So both of these steps, preparing your body for the most effective deficit and knowing how to exit the deficit and maintain the weight loss results you achieved at a higher maintenance level of calories, are steps that most people really do not do correctly. And this is exactly why people either plateau in their weight loss progress or they yo-yo their weight loss. So the name of those two steps is called reverse dieting. Reverse dieting is where you gradually increase the amount of food that you eat so that your body will adapt. It will become accustomed to the fact that you are consistently eating a bit more and more gradually, and then its maintenance calories will also increase. You will automatically start burning more calories 24/7 on autopilot. So reverse dieting is something that a lot of people unfortunately don't know about, and it's exactly why so many people struggle to have lasting weight loss success, because most people think for fat loss or weight loss, really it's the same thing. They know that they need a calorie deficit. They know that their body needs to be burning a bit more calories than the amount that they're consuming, which is technically correct. You do need to be in a calorie deficit to achieve a lot of weight loss. But where people go wrong is they don't think about, am I in a good position? Am I in the most optimal position to begin a calorie deficit right now? And then they also don't think about how can they get out of their deficit safely once they're done their fat loss phase so that they can actually maintain the results and not just gain back all the weight that they lost. So what do I mean when I say you're in a good position for a calorie deficit? Essentially, this means that for the vast majority of women, you should be eating at least 2,000 calories a day consistently before you begin a fat loss phase. Now, this is not 100% a hard and fast rule. If you are maybe a bit older, if you are very sedentary, or if you're just kind of a very small woman, this number might be a little bit lower. Maybe I would say as low as 1,800, but I really don't think any woman should begin a deficit if they're currently eating less than minimum 1,800 calories. But I would say, honestly, the vast majority of women would be minimum 2,000 calories. And honestly, I've worked with so many women in their 30s, 40s, 50s, even in their 60s, and helped them to lose a lot of weight sustainably. And I've often found that most women can get even higher than 2,000 calories a day before starting their calorie deficit. Generally speaking, the vast majority of our clients, we get to around 21, 22, 23, maybe even as much as 24, 2,500 calories a day before beginning their calorie deficit. Now, what I see with the vast majority of women who come into our coaching program is a lot of women are eating somewhere in the 1,400 to maybe 1,700, 1,800 calories a day range right now. Some women are eating even less than that, especially if they're a woman who has a bit of a fear around food and has been a bit of a chronic dieter. And then there are some women who who are already eating a bit more than that consistently. And if that's the case, they're usually more in the 18 to 2,000 calorie, maybe 2,100 calories a day range, which is a really good place to be. But like I said, most women, I find their average intake is kind of that like 14 to 1,700 calories a day. Now, let's say you are a woman who has at least 15, 20, maybe 30 or more pounds that you want to lose, but you are only eating 1,500 calories a day right now. This is a perfect example where it does not make sense for you to go into a calorie deficit. And that is what most people would do, because they would hear the advice, oh, if I want to lose weight, I need to be in a calorie deficit. It does not matter what my current intake is. Let's just start slashing calories. Well, why is this such a bad idea? Because in order to be able to lose a significant amount of weight and really be able to have a relatively easy time with your calorie deficit, you want to have a lot of runway to drop your calories. I find that most women in their calorie deficits are usually going to have to drop their calories anywhere from about 700 up to as much as 1,000 calories. So let's say even though you're a woman who has weight that you want to lose, but you're only eating about 1,500 calories a day right now, well, guess what? If you want to have an effective deficit where you're going to lose, around 20 pounds and you need to be dropping at least 700 calories a day, that means towards the end of your deficit, you're going to be at 800 calories. That is obviously just way too little food. No woman is realistically going to be able to adhere to that. And if you're not able to adhere to your protocols, you're not going to be able to actually get anywhere with them, because if you can't follow the plan won't work. So that's the one aspect of it, is literally just adherence. You want to be able to eat an amount of calories that is actually realistic to adhere to. Generally speaking, the absolute lowest I really have ever taken a client in a calorie deficit is 1,200 calories at the very, very end. And even that is on the really low side, but some women do need to go that low. Again, especially I find this to be true with women who are more so in their 40s and 50s, and especially if they're coming from a long background of dieting and restrictive eating, which unfortunately a lot of women in that age range, that applies to them. Now, most women that I coach usually are not going to have to go any lower than somewhere between 1,500 to 1,800 calories a day in their deficit, and they'll still be able to lose anywhere from 15 to 30 pounds in one deficit with me. And the reason that this is the case is because of reverse dieting first and foremost, prepping your body for a calorie deficit by getting your body adapted to a higher amount of calories, and then having a consistent maintenance that is 2,000 calories or more, generally speaking, with a few exceptions, and then going into your calorie deficit from there. Okay, and then like I said, the other part of the equation is after you do your calorie deficit, which generally speaking is going to be somewhere between, I find, about 5 to 8 months. I do have some clients who go as long as 10 months in a calorie deficit, and the length of time that somebody is in a deficit is really going to be dependent on how much body fat they have to lose, how good they are feeling or otherwise in their deficit, right? If you're, say, like month 6 in your deficit and you're absolutely miserable, you're starving, you're cranky, you have no energy, and you're already at a really low amount of calories, that pretty much goes to show that you don't have any more room for the deficit. Your body has had enough and you have to call the deficit quits, and you need to start reversing out of your deficit. But a lot of women, especially because if you do this correctly and you reverse diet before your deficit, you have prepped your body to be able to have a long, healthy fat loss phase, because you're still keeping your calories relatively high. So this is why some women can definitely go a bit longer, and especially just if they have a higher amount of weight to lose and they're still feeling good, they don't feel hungry and cranky, that is when you can push the deficit a bit more. But generally speaking, like I said, I find most clients are going to be somewhere in the like 5 to 8 month range, and then sometimes a little bit longer than that. So once you get to the end of your deficit, you now need to once again reverse diet, because you need to start gradually adapting your body to higher calories once again. Because what happens when you're in a deficit, your body adapts to the lower amount of food that you give it. Your body is so smart, and it's always going to adapt to what you're consistently giving it, right? Because it's trying to keep you alive. So yes, we need to create a deficit in order to lose fat, and your body is going to get adapted to a little bit lower calories. But then in order to get out of the deficit and maintain the 15 to 30 plus pounds of weight loss that you experience in your deficit, you now need to start reverse dieting, start getting your body adapted to more and more food once again, and doing this gradually, doing this smartly, and actually making decisions based on the data of how your body is responding, which I'm going to go over in a minute. it. So that is the formula for lasting weight loss success. First, doing a reverse diet to optimize your body for a fat loss phase, then doing the fat loss phase, losing as much weight as you can in one go, and generally that's going to be somewhere between 15 to 30 pounds. It can be a bit higher depending on how much weight you have to lose. And then, once again, reverse dieting out of that fat loss phase, getting your body adapted to a higher maintenance level once again. Now, I know you might be thinking, okay, but I want to lose more than 30 pounds, so wouldn't I stay in my deficit for longer? Well, this is where we have to accept that you can't always lose all the body fat that you want to lose in just one deficit. This is why you have to cycle these phases over time, honestly over 1 to 2 years, even longer than that, to really create a dramatic, huge transformation in your physique that is going to last permanently. So that is why you need to know how to do these phases. It's usually going to be your first deficit, your first cut, where you lose a lot of body fat. It's going to be the most dramatic transformation. But then a lot of the time you're going to have to come back for a second deficit after you take a break for a couple of months with a post-cut reverse diet, getting your body adapted once again to a higher amount of calories, just giving yourself a break because, after you've been cutting for a little while, you're probably going to be a little bit over it because it is harder to be more strict with your diet, to have less food, and to be doing more cardio and steps. So it's nice to just take a little break from that for a few months, get yourself to a position where you can maintain the weight loss results you had, enjoy the fruits of your labor, and then after a couple of months, you can go once again back into your calorie deficit. So I'm gonna quickly run through a few client examples so you can see what I'm talking about with actual examples of women at different starting points and different ages. This is my client Steph. She's 30 years old and she has achieved 25 pounds down doing a reverse diet, then a cut, and we just finished her post-cut reverse and we have actually just started her second deficit. So probably in the next 6 months or so, I'll be able to show you an even more epic transformation photo of hers because even though she lost 25 pounds and she looks amazing, you can see she still has a little bit of body fat, a little bit more weight that she wants to lose, which again requires that we do a second deficit since we can't get all of it in that very first deficit. So she came into the program and even though she obviously had body fat that she wanted to lose, when we did her test week of tracking her food, we found that she was only eating about 1,600 calories a day. So again, it wouldn't make sense for me to immediately start dropping her calories from there. It makes a lot more sense that I get her body prepped for a really effective fat loss phase. So what I did was I did a reverse diet. We went from 1,600 to just under 2,200 calories a day. And she did get a little bit leaner. We started to see she was losing some body fat, but it's not like the weight was dropping off like crazy. And I want to say that is something to expect with a reverse diet. Don't expect to lose a ton of weight in a reverse diet itself. That is not the goal of a reverse diet. The goal of a reverse diet is to prep you for the calorie deficit, and that's where you're going to lose a bunch of weight. So yes, some clients definitely can already see a good bit of weight loss in the reverse diet itself. That's definitely something that happened with my client Valerie, who is down 40 pounds doing this exact same process with me. She's 47 years old, and when she started the program, she was only eating 1,500 calories a day, and I was able to reverse her all the way up to 2,300 calories a day, and in that amount of time, she lost about 13 pounds. So I find that this can happen with women who definitely are on the heavier side. If they have a bit more body fat, usually at least 50 pounds plus that they need to lose, a lot of the time they can see a bit more weight loss happen just in the reverse diet itself, but there's really no way to predict this, unfortunately. You really have to be tracking your body's data and then making decisions from there. And then what I did with her was a calorie deficit where she spent the majority of the time around 2,000 calories, but at the very, very end, we were at 1,700 calories and we cut for about 8 months. And then the grand total weight loss from her reverse and her cut was 40 pounds down. So that is a huge achievement. And then what did we do? We did a reverse diet once again to get her out of her calorie deficit, get her gradually adapted to burning more calories so she could be able to maintain her 40 pounds down eating more food. And we were able to get her back up to about 2,300 calories a day once again, and she didn't actually gain weight from it. She just maintained her weight loss. So that's how you know you are doing a successful reverse diet, is when you're actually able to maintain your results even though you're now eating hundreds of calories more, like literally 600, 700 calories more. Okay, so going back to my client Steph, She only lost maybe about 2-3 pounds in the reverse diet, but honestly, even that is still phenomenal to be down any amount of weight, even though we went up 600 calories in her intake. But then what happened was she was starting to feel quite full, like feeling like this was a lot of food. And that's one of the ways you'll know that it's time to end your reverse, is if you're just starting to feel like, oh my gosh, this is a lot, and you do have weight that you need to lose, that is when you can start to transition into your cut. The other way to know to transition into your cut is really just that you're at an adequate place, you're eating plenty of food, you're over the 2,000 calories a day. Honestly, even better if you can get to like 2,200 plus. But again, this is all going to come down to how your body's responding to what you're doing. And this is why you need to be tracking your weight every single day and paying attention to the trend. And you also need to be taking weekly progress photos, because again, like my client Steph here, she wasn't losing a ton of weight yet in her reverse, but you could see she was getting a bit leaner in the process. Now, once we finished the reverse, we then went into a cut. We cut for about 8 months. And then in that amount of time, she was able to lose a total of 25 pounds. And we finished her cut at just under 1,500 calories a day. So that's very close to the amount of food that she was eating when she started the program, except this time she was 25 pounds lighter. So can you imagine if we had just gone into a deficit right off the bat, she would not have been able to lose as much weight as she was able to lose because we reverse dieted first and got her body adapted to more food and then started cutting. So what should you actually expect in the reverse diet itself? You should not expect to necessarily see that you are losing a ton of weight. Sometimes it will happen that you will see a bit of weight loss, but really the goal of the reverse diet is to even just be able to maintain your weight, even though you are eating a lot more food. So, because think about it, if you can maintain your weight, but you've increased about 600 calories, perhaps even more, that alone is a huge achievement. Now, what might happen in a reverse diet is you may gain just a little bit of weight. I would say you don't want to gain more than really a couple of pounds, maybe 3 to maximum 5 pounds, especially again, if you're somebody who has weight to lose, because if you have weight to lose, we're not trying to go put on a whole bunch of weight before we take it off. However, obviously a few pounds can happen. And this is why you need to be tracking your weight, but you also need to be taking weekly progress photos, because what can happen is you might be gaining a few pounds in your reverse, but you're actually starting to look better. And the reason that that would happen is because not all weight gain is fat gain. The fact that you are eating more food, and of course that you are also training to build muscle. I didn't even talk about that in this video, but that kind of goes without saying. You need to also be lifting weights. You need to be strength training. That is one of the best ways that you are going to be able to lose weight and keep it off for good, because it's going to speed up your metabolism. It's going to build muscle. And again, I'm thinking you don't want to just lose weight. You probably want to lose weight and be toned. And the way that you're going to be toned is building the muscle, which is going to come from strength training. And also one of the best ways to keep your metabolism fast and to maintain your muscle when you are in a deficit, because technically, yeah, you are in a deficit of energy. So you want to protect your muscle mass. And the best way to protect your muscle mass when you're cutting is to be getting that stimulus on your muscles, to be lifting weights. That's the best thing you can do. That's really going to keep the muscle thriving. So you may see a few pounds gained in your reverse diet because you are building some muscle most likely, and you would be able to see that difference side by side in your photos. So this is why make sure to be taking your progress photos. And the other reason is just you're eating more food. So you're holding more water weight, more glycogen, which is energy from carbs we store inside of our muscles and liver, and just more gut weight. So those things can contribute to a little bit of weight gained on the scale in a reverse diet, but you could actually still be looking better in your photos. So I'm going to share one last client example of this here. This is our client Kelly, who's in her mid-40s, and she was able to have a huge transformation doing this process of reverse dieting, cutting, and now she's exiting her cut with a post-cut reverse diet. So she can maintain her weight loss as she starts to eat more and more. So Kelly is an example of somebody who did gain about 3-4 pounds in her initial reverse diet, but this wasn't a big deal. She didn't look worse in her photos. If anything, we started to notice a little bit of an improvement physique-wise. And ultimately, this was setting her up to have a really successful cut. So she came into the program eating about 2,000 calories a day. We did a pretty short reverse, just under 2 months to get her to 2,300 calories a day, just so she had a bit more room to drop her calories. And then we went into a pretty long calorie deficit. She's somebody who was able to cut for 10 months, and that's just because her body was responding well. She wanted to lose as much weight as she could, and she ended up losing 18 pounds from the end of her reverse to the end of her deficit, which meant that she was 15 pounds down from when she started the program, since she gained about 3 pounds in her reverse diet. Now, she is an example of a client who did have to go pretty low in her calories. We had to finish her cut at 1,200 calories a day. And like I said, that is the case for some women. Some women are going to need to go to the 14, 13, 1,200 calories a day, but that's really kind of the lowest I would ever take someone. And again, I usually see that this is only the case with women who are more so in their 40s, 50s, and especially when they're coming from a background of long-term calorie restriction, which was the case with Kelly. She had always been a dieter, and yet she still was struggling to achieve the physique she wanted, but with us, we were able to do that for her. So she's ecstatic with the results. She's looking so much better, so much leaner, and now we are gradually bringing her out of her reverse, and she's maintaining the weight that she lost even as we increase food and decrease cardio. So if you want to be guided through this process of reverse dieting, cutting, and then reverse dieting out of the cut to maintain your results, this is something that we're absolute experts on. We've helped so many women lose a dramatic amount of weight and keep it off for good using this exact process. So if you would like to be coached personally by me or someone on my team, we would love to see if you're a good fit for our program. So you can click on the link in the description to apply and chat with us to see if you're a good fit. All right, fam, thank you for checking out this video. Now, I know I didn't go into the details of how you do a reverse diet, exactly how you set your calories and your cardio and all of that. So instead, I want you to go watch this video here where I'm going to break down exactly how to reverse diet and cut and the overall summary, so you'll know how to do that yourself. I'll see you in that video.